This is the first part of an interview with Randy Fox. These audios as well as all the content on this channel are intended to safeguard and record the Pitbull history for future generations. Don't forget to subscribe to the Tony Montana channel and click like to the video. Without further delay, here is the first part of this interview. Interviewer: well, start out first with like how you got started with them. Randy Fox replies: okay, I really don't know what you mean. Interviewer: how did you get interested in the Bulldogs? Randy Fox replies: probably my grandpa. He had some Bulldogs. He lived over at Mountain View, Oklahoma. He was the first to start talking to me. Jim Williams, like I told you, lived behind my aunt and uncle and Earl. I don't know, just heard about them. You know, it just that I can remember looking through the fence over at Jim's first. I saw a black bitch bulldog with yellow eyes. She was coal black, almost blue, and I couldn't take my eyes off her. I'd say I was 7 or 8 years old, so I said when I got big and get me some money, I'm going to get me one of them dogs. I really don't know what causes it, but a guy does, he sees something. I don't know what it is that gets you started and you got a bulldog like I did. I had an old bitch Earl and Maloney bred her and I fought her. I don't know if that was the first dog I fought, but I remember fighting her into dawn and losing, and it really made me mad, and he teased me about it, you know. He always kind of rode me. That's what probably hooked me more than anything. Interviewer: who done? Randy Fox replies: yeah, probably, he hooked me because he got me revved up by teasing me, you know. One thing leads to another. My great-great-grandfather had bulldogs. He didn't get me started. My grandfather told me about them. Those bulldogs are funny. He had about 50 head of cattle, and he had a cow get out, and he had a black bitch he called Maud. He let her loose. He told her get that cow. I remember I was a little kid. She got that cow by the nose and was just hanging on, and that cow couldn't stand it. It finally just kind of laid down. He went and got her in the pasture where she was supposed to be, then put the dog up. He never should have done that, cause from then on every time he let that dog loose she waited though every one of them cows and got that same cow every time, and he had to leave her on the chain the rest of her life. I thought that was really strange. Interviewer: who was your biggest influence in with the dogs? Randy Fox replies: oh, nobody. Interviewer: nobody in particular? Randy Fox replies: there was a lot of people I listened to that I probably shouldn't have. I told OPK one time, do your own thing, and if you need to ask some questions, ask them and weigh it all, don't believe no person. Weigh it all out yourself and do your own thing, and don't pay any attention to me or the truth or anybody else. Take it all in and weigh it and do your own thing. And I believe that. I don't believe that you can learn it from Earl Tudor or Jim Williams or Maurice Carver. You know, it's like painting a picture. You could learn from the best painter in the world and I could still never be able to paint a picture. Interviewer: what about Earl Tudor and Jim Williams? Randy Fox replies: old Earl, when I was a kid we used to go to church in Hobart and I would ride past his house. He was a bootlegger. He bootlegged for years and everybody in town knew him. Not many people liked him, you know, cause he was kind OT an outlaw. Fought chickens and dogs. He used to have some chicken pits at his house and they would have chicken fights and dog fights. He really made me nervous to go over there. John Antonelli and him are a lot alike. He would tell me stories about Hannah, and Hannah was fighting a dog against him, and he, Hannah, had razor blades worked into the edges of his shoes. He was a little prissy man. He told me, Earl, and he, Hannah, would kick the dog with razor blades. Earl would tell the story. I don't know if it was true. Earl would tell it, so finally he said I just hit him. And when he would tell it he would get up in your face and, Randy Fox demonstrates Earl's movements, look you right in the eye, and I would have to put my hands up to block what he threw, you know. Oh, I don't know, Earl was alright. He really wasn't my kind of people, but he was alright. My house set 10 miles from his house and 7 miles from Jim Williams' house where I was raised. Old Jim wasn't honest, he was a crook. He lived right behind my aunt and uncle in Mountain View, okay. When I was about 5 or 6 years old I would look through that fence and talk to him. I thought he was nice and everything. I bought some dogs from him, then I moved up to the city and I wanted a pup. Boy, I thought he was the neatest old fella. He was smooth and he had a better reputation than Earl did as far, you know, he was a nice sheriff and an outstanding citizen. When I was a kid we used to parallel park and drink beer in the middle of the street down in Mountain View, and he would go by and check doors and stuff and would say, "What are you drinking?" I would say milk. He'd say chocolate. I would say yeah. We were drinking beer, you know. He would never get us though. OPK might have told you already, but I ordered a dog from him, and when I got him, they used to send them by truck. I went down to pick him up at Mistletoe and the people had him out playing with him. He sent him in an apple crate that you opened at the back. I was proud as punch, a pretty little thing, and the older he got the more he got to look like a bird dog. So, I went over to talk with Bill de Cordova and I asked old Bill, "How is that dog bred?" He said, "Well, he said a quail." I said, "What do you mean?" He said that one of my bitches got out and got bred by a bird dog, and Jim said he wanted them, and I didn't know what he wanted them for. He was selling them to people all over the country. I bought me one, so I promised him I wouldn't tell, but I got so mad I drove to Jim's house and I said, "Jim, let me tell you something. I talked with Bill and he told me that dog you sold me was half bird dog, and he said, he ought to know, he bred it." Like that, he blamed it on Bill. He said, "If you won't be mad at me I will give you a red bitch pup about 6 months old." Well, that bird dog was better than her. But when that bird dog got grown, the bird dog, half bird dog, we called him Sport, and he was so smart I kept him a long time. Sport was rough. He would fight for about 20 minutes then quit. He wasn't game, you know. I gave him to my brother and he took him. He had a beer joint over in Stillwater and he kept him for a guard dog. He was good for that. Folks kept breaking in, but it quit after he got Sport. Maybe other than a roll dog he was just a cur dog. I don't know. You know, dogmen, they aren't really much. They make big heroes out of all of them, and they aren't big heroes, most of them are. Interviewer: well, it all gets blown out of proportion, we are all just people. Randy Fox replies, yeah, everyone is just people. Or they will talk about somebody that was famous, you know. Earl lost dog fights too, and he did a lot of things. I'm not going to tell you everything he done to win a dog fight. But, he did. And you probably know it. He was an ornery outlaw, but he was a good man in his way. He tried to help ya, he gave me different dogs and gave them to me, you know. I liked him for that. He was nice when you would go over there. My mother didn't like me going over there when I was young. I went to fight one time and Earl had a stroke and he wasn't out of the hospital 2 weeks, and he was crying and talking to Danny Burton, and he said, "Danny, I don't know how to die." I felt sorry for him and I told Mother, and she went over to invite them to church. His wife was as good as gold. He told me that he and his wife never had a fight or argument ever. That ain't understandable. Interviewer: she must have been a patient woman. Randy Fox replies, I don't know how in the world. O.P.K, probably satisfied her with all the money from the bootlegging, maybe. Randy Fox replies, you see, that's when he slowed up on dog fighting, because he didn't have the money to fight dogs no more. When he was bootlegging, he had money. He could fight dogs anywhere and everywhere, but whenever they made the state where you could buy liquor and stuff. Interviewer: killed him, didn't it? Randy Fox replies, yeah, ruined him. You could see the difference in his house and everything around here, everything changed, it made a difference. He was probably the best dogman in the country. He could beat you or he could fleece you, and he checked every dog that he had, and he checked them hard. He could take you if he wanted to, but he also fought a lot of fair dog fights and beat them. He was a good dogman. I think he was probably the greatest. You know, his dad fought dogs. He had a whole line of people, as far as people fighting dogs over there all the time, constantly fighting dogs. When I was real young they would roll dogs over there all the time. Anybody would let him have a dog. Interviewer: he was in the chickens big time. Randy Fox replies: yeah, at one time he fought a lot of chickens and stuff. I don't know, really he was alright, but I don't like to worry about nobody when I am around them, and he made me nervous, you know, kind of like John Antonelli did. John hadn't ever done anything wrong around me. Like Danny said, the first time he went over there Earl just walked in a circle around him, looking at him, like that, looking at him in the eye, sizing him up. He was that kind of guy. He was a little bitty fella, Earl was, but he would fight anybody. Earl hit old Red Martin in the nose twice. You probably heard about that, didn't you? At the Tights, Jimmy Job was fighting Don Maloney and they got into it, and Don hit Job in the eye a couple of times and Job curled right out and kind of run backwards, and Earl got all excited and he said, "Where they at? Where are they, Don?" Earl couldn't see good and Red Martin jumped in front of him and Earl hit him twice and Red said, "It's me, Earl." Old Job's wife passed out. That was the darnest mess. Interviewer: where was the deal where old Bobby Hall jumped on Don Maloney? Randy Fox replies: let's see, I don't remember where it was at. Interviewer: were you there? Randy Fox replies: yeah, but I can't remember where it was at. Some people think he is a passive guy, but Bobby Hall will fight at the drop of a hat. Interviewer: I heard that Don got the shit knocked out of him. Randy Fox replies: well, I kicked the shit out of Don once myself, but he pestered me all my life, you know. Interviewer: you got your revenge? Randy Fox replies: yeah, I was a little kid when he got his bluff in on me and I was really one. Well, I don't know how to explain it. People who are not 100% brave, they use people, young kids, and stuff as they like to make themselves feel good. Interviewer: sure they do. Randy Fox replies: they have got little man's disease. He wasn't really a little man, but he had that disease and they have to make themselves feel big. There are dogmen that like to belittle other dogmen to make them seem superior. A lot of dogmen have this disease. They all have the best dogs, they all run everybody else's dogs down, and they don't have any better dogs than anyone else. Oh, Don, he and I kind of made friends before he died, and Claudia is one fine lady. At his funeral, old Homer Sams, you know, he and I got into it one time and I bit his left ear off and they sewed it back on. He has 2 ears now, but one is lopsided a little. He and I sat at the funeral side by side and I thought this was kind of strange. He said, he was the most arrogant son of a bitch I ever meet in my life. I thought, boy, that's strange to say about a guy at his funeral, a typical dogman. Maurice Craver made an impression on the dog game. He was a pretty good dogman. Interviewer: then when it comes to bloodlines, then, how did you settle on what you wanted? Randy Fox replies: oh, I liked Tudor's dogs probably as good as any, and the reason I liked them, they could bite and was as game as any of them. They got to where they weren't good, I mean you probably know that anyway without me telling you. You couldn't breed a Dibbo dog to a Dibbo dog. It got to where you couldn't hardly get a good dog, and you could take and outcross them and you could get what Dibbo dogs were supposed to be, if you crossed them with something that they crossed with well, you know. I liked them Dibbo dogs Earl had because they were tough. I don't know that they were any gamer than any others, but they were tougher, but you didn't get good dogs when you inbred them. Interviewer: well, what about White Rock? Did you get to see White Rock? Randy Fox replies: yeah, I can't remember much about him. I just remember I've seen White Rock and I had a granddaughter to White Rock. Interviewer: is that blood gone now? Randy Fox replies: yeah. Interviewer: do you have any of it left on the yard? Randy Fox replies: no. Interviewer: When it came to conditioning, who helped you the most? Randy Fox replies, oh, probably a fella by the name of Richardson, a chicken fighter, and if you read and follow Good Chicken Men you'll learn the importance of the keep. Of course Earl, Jim were both helpful and taught me. Richardson, I don't know why I give him some credit, but he was just a good chicken man. He lived up there in Enid and really learned a lot of the philosophy about comparing the chickens to the dogs. It is altogether different because chickens come game. Interviewer, once you get a family established. Randy Fox replies, yeah, they come gamer than dogs. Most bulldogs are cur dogs. Interviewer, well, they don't breed true. Randy Fox replies, no, they don't breed true. Not at all, you'll never know. I always tell OPK the tricks in the click. I don't care if Maurice Carver or anybody else can tell you different and it's a lie. You can take two of the best dogs in the world and if they don't click, well, forget it. Or you might take a sorry old bitch that's got some good dogs behind her and breed her to a mediocre dog, and dogs from them might be the best son of a guns in the world. If there are some good dogs behind them. I like having good dogs behind them. Interviewer, you are saying it can skip a generation? Randy Fox replies, more than that, you know that. Interviewer, I'm just trying to make an interview here. Randy Fox replies, I know it. It can skip a bunch of generations. A guy will have 100 dogs before he'll get a good one, and then it may not be game. I believe a lot of them can be stopped. You know, everybody thinks they got a game dog. Bring him over here and leave him for a little while, I'll make him scream and run when he sees another bulldog. You put it on him hard enough, he'll run. Just keep doing it to him every day. Interviewer, there's a breaking point to all of them, is what you are saying? Randy Fox replies, you betcha. Have you ever seen a car battery that's got amp hours? They only have so many amp hours, then it's gone. Interviewer, then you are in agreement they're a living. Randy interrupts before I can finish the question. Randy Fox replies, real fine, delicate little instruments that we play with, and if you treat them like a fine jewel watch you might get a little something out of it, but the first time, like Don Maloney did Davis, he fought him 4 times in 7 or 8 months, and the last time he lost to Sammy Evans, who's a great dogman from Tulsa. He whipped a bunch of the big guys and nobody ever heard of him, and he whipped old Davis. Davis grabbed his tail and was walking in a circle shaking his own tail. He had a dog called Evil Eye, 'cause he had one eye, not Evil Eye. I can't remember his name, but he was a Neblet bred dog that whipped Davis, and the Davis dog really didn't cur out, what you'd call curd out, he shorted out. He just grabbed his tail and walked in a circle. I can produce lots of witnesses to that. Interviewer, well, of the dogs that you have witnessed, what are some of the great ones that stand out in your mind? We need to get into Alvin the dog here before long. Randy Fox replies, oh, there was fella by the name of Rick Bethel had a dog called Lion. Did you ever see that dog fight? Interviewer, no. Randy Fox replies, he whipped Ronnie Anderson with him. He whipped a Carver dog that Carl Beasley and Don Maloney fought into him, and he, Lion, just killed them. He killed every dog that he was on, and probably nobody ever heard of Rick Bethel. He lived over by Okmulgee. Interviewer, I have heard of him. Randy Fox replies, the dog was a great dog and he was a cousin to Alvin. He, Rick, had the bitch. She was out of Tembo, who's Alvin's dad. The other part of him was Neblet bred. You don't hear much about Neblet dogs anymore being good, most of them aren't. Interviewer, think the line has done died out or something, or has not come true anymore. Randy Fox replies, yeah, they don't breed true, you know. You will see some of it a little bit here and there, that's game, but what I was going to tell you was that Lion was a great dog. That Tonka dog of Ronnie's was a good dog. I don't know that he was a super dog or anything, but he was good. He was decent. There are a lot of dogs that are publicized that I don't think are great dogs, but they say they are. Interviewer, what about Alvin the dog? How did you come into possession of Alvin? Did you breed Alvin the dog yourself? Randy Fox replies, no, I bought Alvin from Bud Reese. He was kind of an old drunk, retired military man. He was. That Reese that's kin to him that has the honey bunch stuff. Anyway, I knew Bud. I'll tell you what happened. I wrote a guy in Georgia, he was an old timer, I can't remember the man's name now. I told him I was looking for a dog to match. He told me Reese fought a dog he got from his relative in Colorado Springs. She was as good a bitch he had ever seen in his lifetime. He said if you are looking for a good dog you just get a hold of that guy. He sent me the address and he got it from that Reese in Georgia. I wrote him a letter and he said he had 3 or 4 dogs for sale. I don't remember, but I bought them all. One of them was that Poco dog and I rolled him with Alvin and I didn't like him, Poco. I sold him to David Eubanks. Do you know who David Eubanks is? Interviewer, don't know him personally. Randy Fox replies, he owned Champion Zeus and Champion Greaser and a bunch of them dogs. He was a good dogman and was as good a conditioner as there was. He beat some of the top guys. That Bud Reese was where I got him. He was just a pretty good dog, you know. He wasn't a great dog, I guess. I guess he was a good dog man. Interviewer, how many times did you use him? Randy Fox replies, I won 2 fights with him. I also stopped a brother to Tombstone with him that Frank Craver bought from Don Maloney, but that was kind of a freebie deal. He came down there with him, was razzing me about him, that was before I ever fought him. That dog, brother to Tombstone, quit and run off. I have a picture of a sister to Tombstone that I bred Alvin to. And they, Gary, had a dog called Oklahoma out of that. I don't know if you have ever heard of him. Her name was Bonnie, Oklahoma's mother. Don Maloney had a sister also to Tombstone that quit, you know everybody has cur dogs, named Bonnie. That's why he got rid of her, but she produced when bred to Alvin the dog. Some good ones, Hales Oklahoma, 2-time winner, Kelly's Queenie, 2-time winner, Belleville's Weasel a winner also, Jerry Scene's bitch died after match. Oklahoma whipped a son to grand champion Art and I watched him fight. I think he fought a little over an hour. That dog sure was hurt, that dog was rough, he roughed him up something terrible. When L got outside he was peeing blood, but that son to grand champion Art was a tough son of a gun. They shot him or something. Ronnie Anderson, they shouldn't have done that. Ronnie really liked that dog even though he quit. He said he was tough. He said he could have won several fights with him. But Oklahoma whipped him. He also whipped a dog in over 2 hours in eastern Oklahoma. I watched him fight a dog Lightning Billy and those guys had out there. I can't remember if he was a friend to Lightning Billy's, but he was an one-eyed guy, big heavy set. He was a great dog. That dog was good, he was as game a dog as you will ever see. He was a son to Alvin. When I whipped Danny with Alvin he tore a hole in his shoulder of Danny's dog. You can ask Cecil Pond or Tommy Sherwood, they would probably remember it, and Danny might remember it, I don't know if he would tell you or not. Alvin put his feet on his shoulder and would pull out little pieces of meat off the dog's shoulder. The dog died right there and he hurt Alvin pretty good, and he ate him up pretty bad, and when I went to scratch Alvin, he tried to run and his feet couldn't move in the front and he pushed himself with his hind legs across, and just about 4 or 5 feet before he got to him he rolled, then he got up and grabbed him from underneath. He was upside down and jumped up and got him. He rolled over on his back and jumped up and got him. Mayfield said that was the gamest scratch I'd ever seen. Old Mayfield had even told some other people that. I've got pictures of him up there scratching with his legs down in the front somewhere. Interviewer, you still got some of that Alvin blood today, don't you? Randy Fox replies, no, not really, the only thing I got is from that goofy acting dog that OPK has got. He has a little bit of him in him. Interviewer, is that Buster, 2-time winner? Randy Fox replies, yes, he's an 1/8 Alvin the dog. Oh, I don't have any. I never did keep many. I'd just jump from one dog to another and look at them. I should have kept old Alvin and bred him a lot. He died when he was about 8 years old, he got cancer. I had a cousin that worked at OSU. He was in veterinary school and he took him over there and they tried to save him but he couldn't. We took him back and buried him at my place in Moore. He was a good enough dog. He wasn't probably the best dog I ever had. Interviewer: what was the best dog you ever had? Randy Fox replies: that dog, I called him Crazy. He was out of Forsyth's Blackshine, a son to Blackshine. Interviewer: let's talk about nigger. Do you have any first-hand knowledge about the controversy over niggers breeding? Do you want to shed any light on it? Randy Fox replies: I will tell you a little story about nigger. I will just start off with this. Earl had Blackshine, later known as Mayfield's nigger. He sold him to Jim Williams, Williams sold him to Forsyth, Forsyth sold him to Don Maloney and Floyd Merriman for 2 days, and he brought him back and gave him back to him, all cut up. J.E. King bought him, and after J.E. King bought him, Sam Kennedy bought him from J.E. King. After Sam Kennedy bought him, Mayfield and George Gilman ended up with him from Sam Kennedy, but that's the route Blackshine aka nigger took. A lot of them say that the papers are right on him, but the people who bred him told me that he was by Mutt, who was his daddy. Interviewer: so what does Mutt go back to? Randy Fox replies: I don't know, they had a bitch bred out of Mutt that whipped Mayfield. A Tammy, Linville's Tammy at the time, Bill DeCordova had her and fought into Don, and when I was there I said, how is that bitch bred, Don Maloney? He said, out of Mutt. OPK, Roger Scott told me that Bob Nebla told him he borrowed Mutt from Maloney after the 3-hour draw fight. He bred him to 2 litter mate sisters. He had litters out of both Ebby and Lady, who were litter mates. Ebby killed all her pups, Lady had 4 pups that lived. Neblet's pup died in kennel fight. Al Brown had one, the only one that was a game dog, possibly a male. Earl Skaggs had one that won 2 fights then quit on his third. George Sadler had one and it quit. OPK, what about the breeding of Mutt? The question was asked to Roger Scott. Rogers: I heard he was Heinz Low breeding on top and the bottom was Spike or Jeff, was the sire of the bitch. That's what Neblet said. OPK, Homer Sams told me he was a Corvino bred dog, that's all he could remember. Mutt was a 43-pound brindle dog that fought over 3 hours. Randy can tell you about that. Randy Fox replies: yeah, against Tommy Sherwood in Don's, Maloney, garage. They fought 3 hours. They shut the doors and went in the house to play pool and drink beer while the dogs fought. When they went back out there, both dogs were in holds. They were broken and scratched. Both dogs scratched and they called it a draw. OPK, was it a real fight or a roll? Randy Fox replies: it was a money fight. Interviewer: what do you know firsthand about nigger stopping? Randy Fox replies: well, I am not going to make any statements about that. I wrote a fellow one time and told him about it, so it may come out in a book sometime. But there are some things that nigger done that really don't make any difference, because it's only going to hurt a bunch of people's feelings, so I'd rather not even go into it, but I am going to tell you I have heard people say that he didn't stop. How could any person know that he didn't stop, when he changed hands so many times? You understand what I am saying? I heard 10 different people make the statement that they knew he didn't stop, and I know if he did or not, but I am not going to say. Interviewer: were you even there when they rolled the dogs? Randy Fox replies: I've been there when they rolled them. Interviewer: you just don't want to say whether he stopped? Randy Fox replies: I will tell you this much about him. I could have bought him for $15. Interviewer: he must have been a real game dog the day you could have bought him for $15, huh? Randy Fox replies: I'm not playing that. I'll tell you what, I like Don Mayfield, it's just kind of like that Belizean dog. It really won't do me any good to try to hurt people's feelings. Those people don't have much to cling to. And old Don Mayfield was a good dogman and whipped everybody in the county until he got those nigger dogs. He really done good and he had some good dogs. Interviewer, what about Gomer? Randy Fox replies, Gomer got whipped by Boudreaux. I'll tell you about that, he got robbed. He didn't get whipped. Do you want to hear that story? Interviewer, well go ahead, I've already put it in there once that he jumped the pit. He did jump the pit, didn't he? Randy Fox replies, he jumped the pit, but he did jump the pit but he was hunting the dog. They had these lanterns that kept going out, they were holding a lantern and it went out and they would relight it and it went out and he was looking for the dog scratching and went over the pit. He was still hunting him, screaming to find him and got counted out. He just got robbed, if they would have been in a room with the right kind of lighting and stuff. I'm not saying that he would have won it but the fight wouldn't been over when it was over and that's the truth. You can ask anybody that was there. There are some of them that might, like Floyd that may tell it different because that's his Napoleon dog. He went to scratch him, he took 2 steps and didn't go, so you could hear anything in the books. Interviewer, well he must have went on it. Napoleon was declared the winner, right? Randy Fox replies, no, the other dog was dead. He was declared the winner cause the guy took a mirror and held to Billy Don Glass's dog and said he was dead. He couldn't get any smoke in the mirror so Billy Don held a dead dog up and Napoleon stops on the scratch. He was just going to see it he'd go and he stopped on the scratch. Floyd was trying to see if he would. He didn't have to do that and he stopped. I'm not sure if he was in the pit or if he stepped out of the pit before he took those steps but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really make any difference because he was already declared the winner. Interviewer, killed the other dog. Randy Fox replies, killed the other dog in the pit, and Boudreaux had some fantastic fighting dogs, and he is a good dogman. OPK, you might as well tell him about it, it's the truth. Randy Fox replies, I understand that, but I'm not talking. You're talking about someone that I like and is a friend of mine. I'm not telling about nigger if that's what you're talking about. I really like him and he's a little crazy. A young man asked me once about the breeding of Mayfield's nigger aka Forsyth's Blackshine. I told him to call Claudia Maloney and ask her about it. He did, and she asked him who told you to call me. He told her and she told him that Randy knows the answer to that, so call Randy. Don got niggers later from Homer Sams. This is the end of the first part of this interview. Don't forget to press the like button and do subscribe to the Tony Montana channel.